Before the world had learned the rhythm of light and darkness, when all was still formless and the deep lay heavy with silence, the Spirit of God moved over the waters with quiet purpose. Then God spoke, and light answered. He divided the waters from the waters and called forth dry land from the chaos. He clothed the earth in living green and scattered stars across the heavens like seeds of fire. He filled the seas with creatures that moved in silver flashes and sent birds soaring upon the wind. He brought forth animals that walked upon the land, each according to their kind. Yet something was missing. The Lord God took the dust of the ground into his hands and shaped it with infinite tenderness. He pressed it, he formed it, and breathed into it the warmth of his own life. In that sacred moment, dust awakened, eyes opened to a world of color and wonder. Adam drew his first breath as one made in the very image of his Creator. He felt the air fill his lungs for the first time. He felt the warmth of the sun on his skin. He felt the nearness of the one who had formed him. God placed him in a garden with surpassing beauty. The air was thick with the scent of blossoms and ripe with fruit. A clear river sang as it wound through the trees, its waters cool and life-giving. Every tree offered shade and nourishment. In the center stood two trees unlike any other, the tree of life, radiant with quiet strength, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God walked with Adam in the cool of the evening. The man felt the presence of his Maker like warmth upon his soul. There was no veil between him and God. Adam tended the garden with quiet joy, his hands in the soil, his heart full of peace. He gave names to every living creature, and as he spoke, he sensed the weight and wonder of the authority that God had entrusted to him. Yet in the days to pass, a quiet ache began to stir within Adam. Though surrounded by beauty and life, he was alone in a way that no animal could fill. He felt it in the quiet moments when the sun began to set and there was no one there to share that stillness with him. He felt it as he watched the animals move in pairs. The Lord saw this, and he said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper fit for him." So while Adam slept, God took one of his ribs and formed from it a woman. When Adam awoke and saw her standing before him, something deep within him recognized her. She was bone of his bones and flesh of his flesh. A profound sense of completion had washed over him. Together they walked through the garden. Sunlight warmed their skin. The grass was soft beneath their feet. They tasted the sweet fruit and drank from the clear river. Most of all, they knew one another, fully, without shame or hiding. And every evening they heard the sound of the Lord walking among the trees and went to meet him without fear. There was perfect unity between them and a perfect fellowship with their Creator. But in this garden there was a serpent, and the serpent was more subtle than any other creature that God had made. He moved with quiet malice, his words smooth and dangerous. He found the woman near the forbidden tree and spoke poisoned sweetness. Did God actually say, "You shall not eat of any tree in the garden"? And the woman answered, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, 'You shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.'" But the serpent said, "You shall not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The woman looked at the fruit. It was beautiful to her eyes, and it smelled sweet upon the air. She felt the pull of curiosity and desire. She reached out, she took it, she ate. Then she gave it to Adam, who stood beside her, and he ate also. In that single moment, everything changed. A strange and heavy awareness washed over them. They looked at one another and suddenly they felt exposed. Shame wrapped them like a cold wind, and fear entered into their hearts for the very first time. They hurried to cover themselves with fig leaves. Their hands were trembling as they were doing so. When they heard the familiar sound of the Lord walking in the garden, they did not run to meet him. They hid among the trees, their hearts pounding in fear and dread. God's voice moved through the garden like a searching wind. "Where are you?" Adam stepped forward, his voice small and broken. "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." Then God asked, "Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit of the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent, he beguiled me, he deceived me, and I ate." Then the Lord God spoke words that would forever mark creation. To the serpent he said, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." To the woman he said, "I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you." And to Adam he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten of the tree which I commanded you, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth to you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Yet, even in judgment, mercy appeared. God himself made garments of skin to cover their shame. Still, the garden could no longer be their home. With sorrow in his voice, the Lord God sent them out of the garden and placed a cherubim with a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. Adam and his wife stepped into the world that now carried the marks of their choice. The air no longer felt quite the same. The ground resisted their hands, and the perfect nearness they had once known with God now felt distant and costly. Life continued in the land beyond the garden, but it was a life marked by toil and sorrow. Adam worked the soil until his hands grew rough and his back bent in labor. And Eve brought children into the world through agonizing pain. Their first son came with cries that filled the air, and Eve named him Cain. Later, she gave birth to another son. His name was Abel. As the brothers grew, Cain became a worker of the ground, while Abel became a keeper of sheep. In time, both brought offerings to the Lord. Cain brought some of the fruit of the ground. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock and their fat portions. The Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. And Cain became very angry, and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at your door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it." But Cain did not master the anger that was rising within him. One day, while they were working in the field together, Cain rose up against his brother Abel, and he killed him. The ground that had already been cursed now drank innocent blood. When the Lord asked Cain where his brother was, he answered with defiance, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying for me from the ground." Adam and Eve felt the deep crushing ache of the loss of bearing their son. The weight of Cain's choice settled over them like a heavy stone. More children came in the years that followed, and humanity began to fill the earth. But with every generation, the brokenness grew heavier. The sorrow that began in the garden now spread across the land like a shadow that refused to be lifted. Yet even as the shadow lengthened, a light remained. God had spoken of an offspring, one who would one day crush the head of the serpent. That promise did not die with Adam. It lived on, carried forward through the descendants like a quiet but unquenchable flame. Though Adam would one day return to the dust from which he had been taken, the story did not end in sorrow. Because of that promise, joy would rise from the ruins of the garden. A greater one would come, the true and better Adam, who would not fail where the first had fallen. Through him, the way back to God would be opened. Through him, the curse would be broken. Through him, the deep longing to walk with God in perfect fellowship would one day be fulfilled forever. And so, even in the sorrow of the fall, hope was already at work. The story that began in a garden of perfect beauty would one day find its perfect ending in another garden, where death would be defeated, shame would be removed, and life would reign in endless joy. This is the story of Adam. This is dust and glory. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Bye for now.
Three, two, one, talk to me.